Hello and welcome. My name is Sam Lishtak. I am the owner of Absolute EHS, Environmental Health and Safety Consulting and Support Services. Today, I'm here with my dear friend, Debra DeLorenzo, who is the owner of Positive Psychology Life Coaching here in Ithaca. And we are going to talk about basically how to keep your cool in this pandemic. Hi, Debra. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this and to kind of work with me on this. I experienced it in my own life, and you experienced it in your life, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure always when we can share and learn from each other, which is why I think we're all here to begin with anyway. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So my experience really, when it comes to psychology, really goes back to disaster psychology. So a pandemic hits, we first hear about it, in foreign lands, and suddenly everybody's buying toilet paper, everybody's buying hand sanitizer, it's disaster psychology. You go back to the last time something horrific happened, which in our case is usually a natural disaster when we use utilities or weapons. So the toilet paper goes flying. And we get into that kind of lizard brain auto response survival mode. But at this point in time, throughout the globe, some people have been quarantined for months. Some people only just started. Some people are already coming out of quarantine and isolation. There's a lot of just, information up in the air. People are doing different things. But we're getting out of that fight or flight mentality, and we need to figure out as a society how to keep our stuff together in the long run, because this could be what it looks like for the next 24 months, according to one of the recent articles that I read. So depending on, everybody's got a different situation. Some of us are alone in an apartment in New York City. Some of us are, in sprawling areas. Some of us have disabilities or need more assistance. Some of us are barricading themselves in the bathroom with their 3-year-olds knocking on the door. Not that that's specific enough to point to anybody in particular. I'm kind of so I really wanted to discuss with you just what are we supposed to be doing? How can we keep our cool with everybody suddenly home all the time, or in some cases nobody coming to your home anymore because you're used to being the host and having friends over?
Well, way to touch on one of the biggest painful parts for me right at the very end about being able to get together with your friends and family, but we'll address that. The first thing I would say is I really like the way you acknowledged that even though we're all experiencing this simultaneously, we're all experiencing this very differently. There are all sorts of situations, there are all sorts of challenges. Not everyone has the same challenge. Not everyone has the same resources. So it's important to acknowledge that I may be experiencing this in a completely different way than you. It's still stressful for both of us. So some of the things that I'm going to suggest or some of the things that people are doing may not work for everyone. But in general, human beings are a lot more alike than they are different. And so some of the things that we're going to talk about are things that definitely could probably benefit most people. But it is important to acknowledge that people's experiences of this are very different, and there's no one size fits all. We're all very unique, and we all bring different strengths to this. And so I would say that one of the things is important is to acknowledge that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And you said that yourself, and you've been saying that for a long time. And it's really helped me wrap my head around, this isn't a reaction for the next couple of weeks or months. It's important to create a lifestyle where we can all flourish, not just survive, but flourish. And I do believe that is possible. But I think we have to just let go of any way it used to be, unless it's a thing that's serving you right now, the thing that's helping you with your resilience. So I think the first most important step about resilience, because that's what I want to talk about, is creating your own resilience recipe. Everybody has different strengths. Everybody has different practices that really contribute to being resilient and being able to thrive. which is our goal. Our goal is to thrive, not just survive. So self-compassion is the starting point, and I would say maybe it's the container for everything that you could be doing, or I could be doing, or any of us could be doing, is having self-compassion, having compassion for yourself that things are just too stressful and you need to go lock yourself in the bathroom while your 3-year-old bangs on the outside of the door, which I have done in the past. And I highly recommend if that's where you need to go for those few moments. And I think, you know, I can have self-compassion for the fact that I have trouble keeping up my daily yoga practice, even though I know it will support my health and well-being. It's a lot of people are reporting very short attention spans. They're very distracted, and I've experienced that myself. It's odd. My cousin described it as my hummingbird attention span lately, and I agree with her. And she's in banking, and she's in a very stressful banking situation. So what works for her is listening to uplifting podcasts and meditating every day. Those are some things that people are turning to. And it's important to understand this is going to be a long haul. It's important to figure out what your recipe is, what my recipe is for calming that lizard brain of fight. It's that not just fight or flight. There's also, and this is what I've experienced a lot of, and I think other people have too, fight, flight, or freeze. So I've had a fair bit of paralysis and being frozen, here's one of my techniques for if you find yourself paralyzed or frozen. This has helped me immensely, and I learned this in my positive psychology certificate program that I took. We read a book called Lessons from Improv, I think was the title of it. And it's a book written by a woman who taught improvisation at, I think, UC Berkeley. And one of the things that happens if you're doing improv, which we're all doing, by the way, we're all improvising. Many, many, many of us every day are improvising new ways of being in this. The question you ask yourself in improv when you're on stage and you're supposed to react or initiate an action is, what is my purpose right now? So it's not what your purpose is 2 months from now. It's not what your purpose is next week. It's not what your purpose is tomorrow. What is your purpose right now? Because sometimes it can be overwhelming and there can be so many things you feel like you need to get done or you need to respond to. But usually there is one thing that kind of bubbles up to the very top, that what is my purpose right now? And for me, when I was standing frozen in the kitchen earlier this morning, I'm like, oh, what is my purpose right now? I need to start my day. I have so many things to do. But what came for me and what helped me get started was I needed to refill the coffee bean container with the coffee beans that I got yesterday at Wegmans. And I'm like, I'm just going to start by refilling the coffee bean container. That's going to be my what is my purpose right now? Refilling the coffee bean container. And it doesn't matter if it's coffee beans or, I don't know, restocking the toilet paper or whatever the thing is. It's what is your purpose right now? And that can help lead you out of the freeze of fight, flight, or freeze. So that's a thing I have carried that piece of paper that says, what is my purpose right now, in my purse for years. And I rewrote it before I knew we were going to be talking today because I really wanted to share that. It's a small thing, but I think it can really help people move forward. And movement is the other thing I would really recommend. Any kind of movement, indoors, outdoors, to music. I highly recommend having a dance party in your kitchen or wherever you have the most space to move around. And if you're wearing socks, it's easier to twist around. Movement is really, really important. It de-stresses us, and it brings, especially if you get your heart rate going, it can bring the endorphins, which helps with our stress and our lizard brain. It helps bring us back to a peace and calm and groundedness. Because I realize I'm blabbering on, but inside every one of us, and this is what's important to reach when you try to meditate or do breathing, and just thinking about it, I can hear my voice change. Inside each one of us is a calm center that's not afraid. Every single one of us has that in there. And the trick, or it's not a trick, what would be beneficial to everyone is to remember that and to figure out what is our pathway to that. If it's breathing, if it's yoga, if it's laughing hilariously with your little kids while you have a dance party in the kitchen, whatever can bring you back to that calm, unafraid center, and find a way to go there every day. And for some people like me, I need it to be a solitary time for me. Not everybody feels that way, but that's for me. I like to be outside. I like to be solitary. For me, it was this morning watching the birds outside on my deck while I was writing in my journal, which is one of my foundational practices. It's not everyone's. Some people need to be way more active. But I think that I would recommend people find 5 things. I don't know why 5 is the number. Why 5? I don't know. Because whatever number you think is your number you could find to try to just make your recipe like every day for your resilience. What is your resilience recipe for every day? And it's probably going to change. It's probably going to change. But I think for me, it's movement. For me, it's music. For me, it's nature, connecting with people because I'm an extrovert that's now confined and relying on technology to maintain my connections with people. So those are 4 of my things. I can't really think of, I'm sure I have a 5th one in there somewhere, but.
Well, I love your suggestion for, dance party and journaling. Can't really do a lot of people watching, but especially for the people stuck in the Bay Area or New York City,
Oh yeah.
Some of them are just stuck in a studio apartment with 3 to 5 people, and they can't get away.
Yeah.
I guess is where you get to make a calendar rotation of who gets to take a 15-minute shower to have your own time. But it's funny you mention your lists because I caught myself writing myself a schedule because I keep thinking, oh, I gotta clean again. Oh my gosh, there's so much laundry. I don't know why there's so much laundry. We're all in pajamas all day. We change pajamas to night pajamas, but there's like an incredible amount of laundry.
I agree.
So I ended up breaking up all the chores. I divided it by 7. And
excellent.
Basically,
excellent. I love this.
Put a list up in my kitchen and I just say, okay, what day is it? I don't remember. And by the time I figure out what day it is, I see what I'm supposed to do that day. And
that's your purpose right now. That's your purpose right now. What's my purpose right now?
But I think what I really needed to do is tell myself and my husband from the beginning, if we miss it, it's fine. Like just keep going. And I think that was integral because then it took the pressure off, but also gave me something to do. I don't know. That's.
So would you say that? Can I ask you a question? Would you say that that was you being self-compassionate about giving yourself permission to not hit a mark?
Yeah, a lot. So even in disaster psychology, what we run into is usually you have a major incident. We're talking tankers blowing up and overflowing, or 9/11 or marathon or something like that. And you have to take your own psychology and the psychology of the rest of your emergency response team into account and look out for each other and take breaks, which is really hard if you're in the middle of an emergency. So part of it, I would say, is my training, but I've never gave myself daily assignments because the longest event I've ever had to deal with was maybe a month long. And I had a bunch of other incident commanders, so I could pass the buck, go home, take a nap, take a shower, do my thing. It wasn't a global, this is something totally different. This is a global pandemic.
What do you think about the idea of, this is something I've been thinking about with like planning for the future. So you made yourself a schedule, which is brilliant, and I highly recommend doing that. It'll make everything feel better. It just makes everything feel better. We've grown up being probably overscheduled in a lot of ways, so it's very hard to be without that kind of
that's the thing.
Touchstone, that anchor.
I miss 60-hour weeks of working. Which I know is bizarre, but like at this point, it's just like, I need to be go, go, go. And so giving myself that to-do list for the day, not necessarily timed to an hour. I don't know, it's keeping me going, at least this week.
Well, what about this though? Scheduling also complete downtime, or not spa days, that's not the right word, but do you understand what I'm trying to get at? So, I do notice that, I'm like, well, it doesn't matter that it's the weekend because every day is like the weekend, but it isn't, it's important to keep that kind of rhythm. I think that people's rhythms have been gotten off, so I'm curious about, you're like scheduling the chores. I think it's also important to make a distinction between you're on duty, otherwise, because if you're working from home, it's really hard to turn it off. You know, it all bleeds together in a way that we used to have much more of a separation unless you already worked at home. But even still, it was a different schedule for you. And I know that for a lot of people with young children, they dropped their kids wherever they dropped them, and then they were able to just focus singularly on their work.
In a weird way, I definitely thought I was ahead of the curve because I did work from home for so long. You're exactly right. I would, everybody was up at a certain time, so I could get my daughter to daycare, my husband could go to work, and then I had the house to myself. And, when I was taking breaks from work, I could do some house stuff and like deal with whatever I had to deal with. So it's very easy for everything to feel like a weekend. And part of when I made that 7-day week schedule is when my husband and I decided, okay, we're going to alternate who gets to sleep in what days, who gets to wake up with the baby.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
He had a very traditional, 8 to 5 situation. So he pretty much gets to keep that 8 to 5 because he's still salaried too, which we're very fortunate about. But he's got to get as much as he can working. So of course he takes breaks. Of course we all have lunch together, and of course he's still in the house. But that means me, since I am more flexible, I tend to work during nap, or when you and I meet at 7:30 in the morning once a week. That's the day he wakes up. And then just because of what I do, I tend to work weekends. But that took a while for us to figure out, and it's still taking adjustments, which I think you've mentioned. You can't like lock it in. It's just not going to work.
You can't. No, you have to be flexible. It's important to be flexible. And honestly, there's so much tragedy and there's so much suffering. And yet part of me thinks how interesting we have this opportunity to become more flexible, become more, in some ways, rooted in who it is we're trying to be in the world. We don't have that. People can get really comfortable or almost falling asleep in their routines. I'm not saying you do that or whatever, but I think that, it's very easy for people to get into their routines and they're just kind of like, that is their life. That's not really their life. That's the expression that they have adopted of their life. But I would posit that it's not their actual life, and that the actual life that we're having to recreate right now is going to be much more based in what strengths are going to have to come forward that we didn't get to use every day because our lives that were so kind of safe or routine didn't require it. But now it's going to require all of us of ourselves. I'm not talking about all of the other people, but all of ourselves bringing this to bear. So what have you found? Are you feeling like you've found a rhythm, a comfortable rhythm for interacting with your daughter, but also, and your husband, but also having time for yourself or your business?
It's good days and it's bad days, and it's good hours and it's bad hours. It's as I was saying, like it's not new, but it's also very new because like I've trained for this, but not on this scale. And I think that a lot of people who've never even trained for this got kind of thrown in the deep end as soon as the pandemic hit. And people who have trained for this, like a bunch of my emergency management friends, we're starting to realize, okay, I know I'm concerned about societal complacency because this is looking like a new normal. Whether or not it's actually normal, it's going to be over eventually. But once we get complacent, once we start seeing all of our efforts actually paying off, we're going to start seeing the lifting of closing businesses, which some states are seeing. Things are going back to normal, and I think it's not going to be good. So I know for me, just because of how I operate, we have a contingency plan, and we've had it set up for months now. So if my husband and I get sick, luckily we're both low risk. We know that we have a family member who can pick up my daughter so that, she can hopefully not get sick, but also get the attention she needs. And we would just have to figure out how to take care of each other.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. I think there are a lot of people who are afraid to think that way. I think it's too scary to them to go that next step of like, well, we'll just do everything we can so nothing happens. Yeah, but you have to plan for what if it does?
Yeah.
What if it does happen? It comes to you in whatever form it takes for you. So yeah, that's really smart. Good job.
Well, that's planning is what I do. I'm a planner. But that's why I will only get takeout from Bali Cravings, because I know for a fact they're the only ones, as far as I know at least, in Ithaca that have a cleaning procedure specific to COVID and a contactless pickup specific to COVID. I'm really not comfortable with the rest of the, delivery systems and everything else, because there are no standards in place. And it's not that nobody's trying, it's because nobody really knows it's not something that people are used to.
It's true. And I think that I've experienced this in just some of my interactions, that there are varying degrees of resistance, not from the business owners necessarily, but from some of the customers who are not always compliant. And I hear that from both of my daughters who work in food service. They experience customers who are reluctant to do the safety protocols that are required by the state, by the way. They're not just required by their particular places of employment. So I'm impressed with how polite they've been to people when they've shared their stories, because I don't think I'd be that polite, but that's all right. I was going to ask you too, have you noticed a difference? I've noticed this. It's something that I struggled with and had to come to terms with in my own self before I think I could help other people, which is always the way it is. I'm a strategic thinker too. I feel like we really got stuff in place very quickly, and I also consulted with you for your expertise about how to set up safety protocols for our family. But that's all very intellectual, and I'm much more comfortable planning my way around this than having to experience some of the feelings that have come up for me and come up for many people I know. I know people with children who are so heartbroken about school, especially seniors and athletes. And I've been so heartbroken about some of the events and activities that I'm not able to share with my loved ones that have been mainstays of our connection. And so I've been reluctant to have those feelings because I just didn't want to face them. I was strategic in my planning, and when I talk to people about this, it's similar. That's the part where it kind of all falls apart in some ways, or people don't want to express that, or if they do, or they're afraid to. I don't know. What's your experience with the emotional impact of this?
That's why you're here right now. I mean, I've become very familiar with AEDP psychology as of late, which is almost entirely about actually feeling the moment. And it's hard. It's definitely not easy. But what I've learned is that if you allow yourself to feel the horrible feeling and cry, which is something I do easily, you actually get past it. It's very, it's not something I was ever very used to. But that's kind of one of those things I wanted to talk to you about, are like, what are these ways that we can let it all out? Like, I know I like fell to pieces last week because, business, and I still haven't figured out the unemployment stuff and the pandemic assistance, and I can't see my family, which sucks. And my daughter is clearly missing school. She cries after the daycare Zoom meetings are over because she just doesn't want to say goodbye. So you're the happiest person I know. What are we supposed to do?
Well, the way that I'm not the happiest person you know. I think I'm very good at expressing my joy and enthusiasm, and the best way to do that, and it's hard to make this analogy, or I'm trying to figure out a better way to explain it. I have to keep two things. One, what you said about allowing yourself to feel what you feel in the moment. Because I had gotten a little blocked up with some of my grief. I felt, because I do positive psychology, because I counsel clients not counsel because I help clients. They do all the work. And I think in people, in my own personal life, people depend on my warmth and my joy as a sustaining factor, and I'm happy to do that. I think that I was feeling like I didn't want to face my own grief and disappointment and fear about, you know, people I love. And so I think that those were very difficult emotions. I was struggling with that. And what was happening is that the more I pushed those away and blocked those, and we all do this, the more difficult I found it to be warm and radiate the warmth and love and joy and light that is always in every single one of us, but it gets blocked up when the stuff gets scary and hard. So it's sad. So I like find ways of releasing that. And so, yeah, so I did. It's important to know where you're at with things. I journal a lot. That helps me. But you're right, feeling it in the moment. And I think the visceral reaction, moving emotions through our bodies, again, I come back to movement. At least tune into where you're feeling it. Are you feeling it in your where? So I feel a lot of times I feel grief in my throat. And what I find is that when I'm feeling sad and need to cry or upset, my throat feels very tight. And I feel like almost like I can't even express what I want to express. It gets very tight and until I release it with either tears, which happen a lot for me. And because then once I release it and it's relaxed, then the laughter can come out. They're very tied together. You have to be able to feel all of it and allowing yourself to feel all of it. But I think tuning into where it is in your body helps to release it. I think that if you're just kind of all over the place and don't tune in, like where are you feeling your feelings in your body? Are you feeling your fear in the pit of your stomach? Are you feeling your heart, your chest feels constricted or heavy? It's important to tune into what is your body feeling like, and doing kind of like a body scan, really. People do that all the time in meditation and yoga, and it really helps. Like, where are you feeling this in your body? And then tune into that and ask it. Ask yourself, ask your body wisdom. What does it want to tell you? And whatever it tells you is exactly perfect in that moment. Every feeling you have is absolutely perfect in that moment. When you were very scared and losing it, or, you know, I've had so many people say they want to have a legit 2-year-old tantrum. I'm like, I know, right? And honestly, that might be a cool thing to do, maybe behind your locked door in the bathroom. Who knows? Sometimes in my biggest, darkest moments, I have gone in the shower because water always feels good, and just cried or sobbed or yelled. And I know this sounds weird, but for Debra, that is one of my prescriptions that I will write myself. And so, yeah, so taking care of yourself, having good emotional hygiene is critical right now. And so I'm glad that you shared that though that's where you were feeling, and you let yourself feel those feelings.
But I also
and didn't beat yourself up about them.
It's important. So like with the body work and visualizing kind of what it feels like, I know I have when I was starting to do that, when I think of my husband, it's this like lovely, jiggly, like orange radiating just sensation. And like,
I love that there's a color. I love it.
Yeah, it's got a color and everything. But I mean, I just want to, elaborate also, like, we are in the middle of a global pandemic, but it's okay to be joyful about things. I think that's another thing people are having trouble with.
Yeah, they feel guilty about how well they're doing. I've had several clients. I would say, geez, now that I think about it, it might be universal. Let me think. Yep. I would say every single client that I have, and let's be clear, I'm working with them because there's things about their lives that they want to change and wanted to change pre-COVID. Every single one of them, when I check in, are like, they're doing okay. And they express to me, they feel a little guilty that they're doing well. And I'm like, it's okay. The world is not COVID. And like, it's not going to, be bad. Like, if you feel good. Like the world needs feeling good. The world needs people joyful. And this is the other thing too, and I was writing in my journal about this morning also. So glad, because we're having this conversation. Kind of simplifies it. There's an awful lot that's the same. I think that people, myself included, focus on all the changes, or, you know, these are the things that we're afraid of now, and these are the protocols we need to change, and blah, 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 blah. And I don't mean to dismiss any of that. But the reality is there's still a lot that's the same. You still get that giggly, orangey, glowy feeling about your husband. And that happened before, and it's going to happen during COVID, and it's going to happen after. There's certain things that are just always going to be the same. The birds in nature are just incredible. The flowers are coming up. The moon keeps changing its phases. The sun is very infrequently, but it's out. Those things aren't going to change. Like I love to listen to this kind of music, and this music is available. That's not going to change. That's going to be available to me. I was just listening to some music from Grassroots today, even though I can't go to Grassroots, with so much joy and happy memories. And that's still the same. I still like the same foods, and I'm making more of them from scratch. There's so much the same. My mom is still the same sweet old lady that has dementia that when I talk to her on the phone still says the same stuff. Like, some stuff is the same. A lot of it's the same. It's okay. And it's okay to celebrate what's so pleasurable about those things. There's so much pleasure and joy available. We don't have to lay that down.
You mentioned memories, and we really do need to talk about this for anybody listening who has lost somebody or someone who has been severely compromised. I know in my family, I actually know two people on my step family side who recovered. They're in New York City and happily.
Oh, can you hear my applause?
But for example, my brother's a medic. He's exposed every day, and he's got 3 kids and wife at home. So like they're and then I've got a friend in California, and she's pretty sure her family's cat has COVID. Like, so there are like a lot of things to be concerned about. But you were talking about kind of thriving on those joyful memories. And I think especially now, when should somebody be in the hospital and we really can't be there. I know my father passed away when I was a teenager, and what got me through that was just remembering all the wonderful things we did together. And at least when I was younger, I pushed away all the horrible memories at the very end. Now that I'm adult, I realize I should acknowledge them and, feel them, like what we were talking about. But what might you suggest to people who are going through this incredible grief and can't even leave their homes to help get that closure?
Well, it's going to be different for different people, and that doesn't help. But I would say that I don't have a singular answer for that, other than, well, this is going to sound really whatever. I think that love doesn't go away when people pass. And I think that the love that you felt for them and the love that they felt for you continues always. It doesn't go away. It has to change a little bit in its transmission or reception, basically. But the love doesn't go away. And what they loved about you and what you loved about them does not go away either. And so holding that, it's timeless. I don't want to say it isn't all. It's absolutely timeless. The love will still be there when you pass. It's all there. It's not created or destroyed. It's always there. And so whatever people can do, and it'll be different for people. For me, it was the music today. It might be photographs. It might be giving your grief a space to not be pushed away and to hold it in reverence, because our tears and our grief should be exalted as much as our love and our joy. Not should, I hate to say should, but it's all actually the same kind of ball, and it's just like a different view, like the view of Earth from space. Sometimes it's of North and South America, and sometimes it's the other side, but it's all the same Earth. And our love and actually our humanity is all the same humanity. And it's hard. It's hard to stay connected to the goodness when you feel overwhelmed with fear and sadness. But the goodness is always there. It doesn't disappear. And I would say that whatever people need to do to look for it and find it and pull it out from underneath the bed, whatever your flashlight is, everybody, this is a metaphor, speaking of metaphors here, as usual, whatever flashlight you can use to find that love, that grounding love. It all comes down to love. It really, literally it is all love. It is us wearing masks all over the place that shows our love and our appreciation for one another, for the ones that we love, that we know, and the ones that we don't know, but we love. I know it sounds Pollyanna, but I really believe that in the end is what's going to triumph over all of this. It's going to help us remember our humanity. It's going to help us reach out to people who need help. As people are doing, there's so much love being shown right now. I know that's not speaking specifically to people who are in crisis.
I do think this is useful, definitely. Yeah, no, it's certainly hard if you're in crisis, but that's a grounding feeling that everybody knows and experiences differently.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And I do feel like there are ways. I just wish we were better as a country, and that doesn't help. This isn't a helpful thought. I just wish we were better as a country at expressing that kind of connectedness and being able to get people what they need, whatever it is they need. Do they need mental health support? Do they need whatever? And I do think there are a lot of things being done, and we're making it up all as we go along. This is very much a work in progress. It's a giant art project. It's very messy right now. So
yeah, and I
don't
think
know.
Also it's just important we are all making it up as we go along. Even someone like myself, who I'm consulting on COVID-related stuff, I'm pulling from other experiences in hospitals and aerosol transmissions and bloodborne pathogens training and all that, but I haven't dealt with the specific I helped with some swine flu stuff back in the day and those kind of smaller, almost pandemic-y type things. But this is a different ballgame for just about everybody. So
it's hard. I think it pushes us. What happens when you're under stress, and this is why I'm so interested in positive psychology and the benefits of whatever is available to us tool-wise and research-wise with positive psychology, is that when we are under stress, when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, we narrow. Our focus narrows. It gets very, I want to almost say flattens. It flattens to just like whatever's the most closest, what seems like the thing that will stop whatever that is. And I think that the goal in reducing your stress through breathing, breath work, there are many, many breath techniques that can reset your vagus nerve, gets very just is going wild, your lizard brain, it resets it and brings you back down to calm, calm center that I was talking about. That enables you to see possibilities and options, and that will help us in the long run as we try to resolve these issues and these challenges. The calmer we can be, the more open and receptive, and those things come from just kind of dropping down and broadening it. I feel like when people are stressed, it gets very flat and it's almost like one-dimensional, like a piece of paper. It's like, oh, all the answers are just on this piece of paper. But when you can fill that out with your breath, with your movement, with your connection, with filling your spirit and your body with breath and joy and light, all of those things are available to us always. It inflates us to a point of being able to three-dimensionally resolve this and solve this. So I think that would be my goal. Again, it's back to resilience and what can help you be most resilient and reduce your stress, and that will enable you to see the possibilities. That's what's going to help us come up with, oh, here's a new way of doing this. And I think a lot of people are already doing that. Some people really thrive on this kind of challenge.
That's true. So I think we should probably wrap it up, but I do want to plug really quick, anybody listening who would like to talk to Debra DeLorenzo, Positive Psychology Life Coaching, can find her website at ithicallifecoaching.com. I will post that under the YouTube video as well. But do you have any parting words for us?
I think I just want to remind people, this is going to sound so silly, but I don't care. I just hope can you find a way to have some fun? Just like do whatever's fun. Find fun. Fun is still available to us. COVID hasn't killed all the fun. And even in wartime, and even in crisis, and even in tragedy, in fact, there's a lot of really funny, dark humor things that I've seen, the interwebs. So I think it's really important to seek joy and seek light. It is there. And the more we raise that vibration in us, the more we raise it in other people. And that, my friends, is good for our immune system. So all of these things I've been talking about, especially finding joy and happiness and stress relief, really help your immune system. And that's the other part of fighting this battle. It's being immune. So that would be my goal. Have some fun. Go out and have fun. That's my prescription.
And love. Go out and have fun while practicing social distancing and wearing a mask.
All right, fine. You're absolutely right. Have fun indoors. I don't know. Go in and out, but only if at a safe distance. You're right. Thank you for that.
Exactly.
See, you're a pro. You're such a pro.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, thank you so much. And
thank you.
Sure, if we get some input, maybe we'll be able to do this again. But we want
I'd
to
love that.
thank everybody for listening or watching, and we will be back soon.